anyone can do this. Everyone can benefit from it. And it's really about putting in the work and being in 100% and making sure that you're getting out of it what you want to, because that's really the main driver, I feel like, of national service and programs like these. Being in situations like you're prioritizing the needs of others, whether that be on an individual or a community basis, just gives you that perspective. And you said it helps you build that empathy. It helps you build that compassion. It helps to break you out of the individualism that I think that we become so accustomed. Really gave me the tools to say, hey, I think that I can do my part to help fix this problem in this community, and others can do that too. So I think that systemic change, yes, it's very much needed, but also we need to build a culture where people can see themselves as agents of change and not rely on other people to do that and cause that and to ride along the alarms out there. You should be sharing your story. You should be talking with other people about how impactful your service was, because not enough people have heard it. If you think you've told a lot of people, you can tell more people.
Welcome back to the AmeriCorps Connections Podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Fiacco, and today's conversation is extra meaningful. This is our 88th episode, and we're aiming for 100 by the end of the year. So today, you'll hear from Willie Brooks, whose AmeriCorps journey was sparked by his biggest supporter. You guessed it, his mom. She was the one who first introduced him to AmeriCorps, and her encouragement set him up on a path of service that shaped his career. Willie's story reminds us how powerful a service year can be, the skills, the connections, and the deep compassion that grows from showing up for others. You know, stories like Willie's are also a reminder of why it's important to keep AmeriCorps funded and thriving. These opportunities change lives, not just for those who serve, but for the communities they strengthen. We want more people to be able to say, like Willie does, that this experience transformed me. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe and hit the bell. If you are listening on your favorite podcast platform, follow, rate, and review the show. It helps us grow and keep these voices alive. Now, stay tuned, because we've got two big things coming your way. An exciting new series lifting up the voices of AmeriCorps seniors, and in early 2026, we'll be officially releasing the Get Things Done framework, built from the wisdom and stories shared right here on this podcast. So, with no further ado, let's dive into Willie's inspiring story.
Great to have that perspective.
It is. I think it's really good to have so many different perspectives.
Yeah. And I think that, people who do national service, everyone has their own individual reason for doing it. And I think that whatever that reason is, you never know where it's going to take you. So I think hearing a multitude of perspectives just goes a long way to showing that, like, anyone can do this. Everyone can benefit from it. And it's really about putting in the work and being in 100% and making sure that you're getting out of it what you want to, because that's really the main driver, I feel like, of national service and programs like these.
Well, and the getting the thing out of it is important on the programmatic side of it, because you can put the boat in the water, and if you put somebody in it and you're like, have fun, they're like,
yeah,
I don't even know where the sails go. Like, what do I do here? What makes a strong program and a strong experience is if the supervisor or the person that's running the program is like, look, for the first 3 months, you're not going to know what the hell you're doing. And that is okay. So for the first 3 months, we're going to do this. And then for the next 3 months, you should know where your service site is. You should know the phone number of your office, right? And then for me, with Volunteer Maryland and now supervising some Vista members, towards the end of their service year and even halfway between, I'm like, what do you want on your resume? What do you want to do in the next 4 months to make sure in your next interview, you can say you did X, Y, and Z, you accomplished it, here are the outcomes. And that's nothing we have in the world, right? Not the world, sorry. I'm not going to talk in extremes. Internships are kind of like that, but I
Mhm.
feel like a service year gives you way more connections than internships. And as soon as you get into your service position, everybody's rooting for you to get to your next best opportunity, to steal that from Baltimore Corps, which I have. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of get
Yeah.
in and everybody's like, "Oh, let's build this skill. You've got to know this person. You've got to come here. You've got to do this." I don't know. What are your perspectives on that?
No, I agree. I think that when I was first thinking about doing AmeriCorps, like I had no idea what I wanted to do. Every term of service, I did 3 terms of service. Every term of service built on the last one. I met so many people that I would never have met otherwise. And I made so many connections that have helped me even to this day. Like you said, everyone is rooting for you. One, because you don't get paid a lot to do these terms of service. No one gets into this field of work to get rich, but like also I think they understand this person is here, there. They could have potentially gone to the private sector and made a lot of money, or they could be pursuing something that is their passion, but they took their time, their talents, their treasure, and they're giving it to some local community to solve some sort of need. When you put in the work and the beneficiaries of your service see that, I almost feel obligated to make sure that that is a reciprocal partnership and that you are also set up for success after your term of service. That is definitely my story. I think that I put in the work. I didn't know what AmeriCorps was or what a term of service was. And a couple months in, I loved it. And I think that reflected itself in the work that I was able to do and the connections I was able to make. And it's why I'm here on this podcast with you today.
Yay! I love that. And so, why don't we get started with the interview?
Here we go.
Yeah. I'll just do this. I'm going to spotlight myself. I'm the speaker. No, I'm not the speaker on that one. We'll just do gallery. Okay. So I'm really excited to learn about your journey. And previously, before hitting recording on this, you had mentioned that you had 3 terms of service. And I
Mhm.
will have to admit, my assistant, that doesn't exist because it's just me running the podcast, didn't do all the research on you. And I was not aware that you did 3 terms of service. So can we start with your terms of service and like how you discovered them? But before we do, folks, if you love this content, I am asking you, I'm pleading with you, please, please, please subscribe. It actually changes the algorithms within this YouTube video and within the podcast. If you're just listening to this in podcast land, it's just me running this podcast. And if you like this content, we need to keep it here, which means we need more subscribers. So Willie, subscribe. Yeah. Willie, how did you find out about AmeriCorps?
Yes, so I feel like a lot of people have these really great
Yeah.
stories about how they came to find AmeriCorps, and honestly, I feel like I'm being transported back into my senior year of college. So I went to a school called DePaul University in Indiana, go Tigers, and I was finishing up my bachelor's degree in classical civilization. And I knew that I wasn't ready for grad school. And I knew that I didn't probably want to be a professor or anything like that. So I feel like my options were limited because with that degree, you need to get way more schooling or you need to find a job that has nothing to do with that degree. What my advisor would say is that classical studies was the original degree and that many of the founding fathers and historical figures had this same degree and were able to do everything that they accomplished
Absolutely.
during their lives. That was not what was happening for me. I was really struggling to find my path forward, and I talking with my mom back and forth. I don't know what I'm going to do. Like graduation is getting closer and closer. And she would just send me kind of ideas and things that maybe I'd like to pursue. And she sent me an email and said, "Have you ever heard about this thing called AmeriCorps?" And I was just like, "Mom, this is like the 20th email that you sent that I don't think is really going to pan out, but I'll check it out. So I looked at it and I was a little bit intrigued. She sent me information for the FEMA Corps program, which is a program under the NCCC, the National Community Civilian Corps, Civilian Community Corps. And I read it and I could see myself doing it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like I thought of that opportunity as something that would give me time to really figure out what I actually wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
I signed up. They shipped me this duffel bag and they were like, this is going to be your whole life, fit as much stuff as you can fit in here, because when you go out on your deployments, like this is what you're going to have with you. So I stuffed it as full as I possibly can. I went out to my campus. I was at the Atlantic region in Perry Point, Maryland, and I was a part of the Otter unit. So you get to campus, there's probably about 200 other people who are from all over the country, are from all different backgrounds, most of which are doing it for a lot of the same reasons that I'm doing it. And we're like waking up early in the morning. We're learning about disaster response and preparedness. We're learning about how to be professional in a federal workspace, because a big part of the FEMA Corps program is that you're going to be responding to active disasters. You're learning a lot each day. You're in a team setting. So I was with 12 other people learning a specific role. My role was public assistance. So like in the wake of a disaster, someone has to go out and do damage assessments on like public infrastructure. So roads, bridges, sidewalks, and you have to calculate what reimbursements are going to be for a lot of these damaged public infrastructure so that local municipalities can be reimbursed for the things that they did during the disaster. That's what I did.
Question.
Yeah.
That's an important part, because I'm going to refer back to the time where we are, and I'm recording this in August 27th, 2025. And this isn't political or anything. Willie's not participating in any political stuff. When we talk about FEMA's inefficient and we need to defund them and all that stuff, there's baby steps to get to the actual infrastructure rebuilds. And it starts with looking at a concrete and being like, well, we're going to have to replace this. It comes down to an individual who's walking on the concrete with a clipboard or an iPhone or whatever. And as you listen to this, and specifically for FEMA right now, I'm excited to learn about all your other experiences, but that's a human person that's going out and looking at the infrastructure, understanding that people can't maneuver this sidewalk, and we're going to need to rebuild this sidewalk. I think that's an important part. Sorry for interrupting your train of thought. Continue.
No, I'll just add a little bit. I found a passion for public service. I found a real passion for emergency management. I didn't know that was a thing. And my national service experience really opened my eyes to that as a possibility. And I feel like for the first time, I was like, this is what I want to do. And this opportunity is giving me the skills to potentially do that one day. So
that's something that a national service experience does, is you're like, I didn't know that volunteer coordination and volunteer management was an industry. Like
it is. Yeah.
It's an industry. You can get certifications. You have to pay for your certifications. You got to get continuing education credits and all that stuff. And you probably, as a college student, you were never introduced to, you can be an emergency management specialist. What does that even mean? And so through the arc of a service year, you can just traverse so many different industries. And then you can step back and be like, this is my calling, or this is where I want to spend some time. And I think that's important when where you said, I think that I want to lead into disaster management as an industry, as a career, as a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. During my first term of service, this was August 2013, Superstorm Sandy had just happened. So we trained, and then my team was actually deployed to New York. I was working out of the Region 2 headquarters in Lower Manhattan, We were there for 6 months. It was amazing. It was awesome. So I think getting an opportunity to, one, learn what FEMA does and work with people who have been doing this for years, who are just like, they're public servants, but also, like, when we did the FEMA training, they would say, you're potentially going to be the first person someone sees after
Right.
losing everything. So that gave me a really unique perspective on just what my role and what, just in general, other people's roles in helping other people are. And that wasn't something that it's not something that I had never considered before, but it was not something that I thought could potentially be my calling. We did that for 6 months. We were all over New York. We did preparedness campaigns. We did mucking and gutting, but largely our work was like in offices. Like, we were building professional skills day in and day out. We got deployed to Lyons, Colorado. There was a once in a 1,000-year flood in this mountain town. It rained so much that it carved a riverbed in the middle of this town, wiped away a third of it. And then we were there for about 3 months. And then my last, in CCC, each deployment is called a spike. So my last spike was in New Orleans. There's a certain amount of time that you have to retain documents, and that time had passed for documentation of Hurricane Katrina. So we were digitizing records, and then we were digitizing records so that we could keep them indefinitely, and then shredding the paper copies so that we could reduce the size of some of the federal kind of like workspaces. That was my first term of service.
So one thing I did want to ask you, though, when you were talking about how they said you're going to most likely be the first person that they're going to see after they've lost everything. How old were you when you took this FEMA? How old were you? Do you recall?
I had to have been around like 22, 23, maybe.
And the reason I call that out is because learning these interpersonal skills and learning compassion and empathy and like self-regulation at 22 is unbelievable, because those are lessons you get in your 40s and 50s where you're like, I gotta fix myself. You know what I mean? Where you're just like,
yeah.
But getting that training and that introspection of, you're gonna be the first person when this person has lost everything to take these things into consideration, and these are the questions, or these are the ways that you need to act. That's massive on a human evolutionary sort of path in somebody's lifetime. So
yeah, and
you are ascended, my friend.
And I think that, just going off what you just said, I personally, this is just me, Willie Brooks' idea. I would love if it was required that everyone did some sort of term of service. And I think that the sweet spot would be, but like, after you graduate high school and before you went on to do anything else, whether that's go to college, whether that's join the job market. I think that being in situations like you're prioritizing the needs of others, whether that be on an individual or a community basis, just gives you that perspective. And you said, it helps you build that empathy. It helps you build that compassion. It helps to break you out of the individualism that I think that we become so accustomed to. I think that being in situations like you're prioritizing the needs of others, being compassionate, being empathetic towards others, and caring about your local community is something that if everyone cared a little bit more about everyone else and just the space around them, just think of how much better we would be as a nation. So I would love to see people do it.
Yeah, no, 100%. And there was a recording, I think it was Griff. Sorry, Ryan. I think it was Ryan, sorry, Jeff. Sorry, Griff. I know your last name's Griff. We had a conversation about making national service mandatory. And I was pushing back. I was like, well, it's hard for people to learn lessons when things are mandatory. But I think the key, Willie, is that making it available. Like, we need to be the loudest option for people that are, like you said, the early 20s, that are either going from high school to college or college to a career. And also because I was like 36 years old when I did my service year, folks that are reevaluating their life. And for anybody that knows astrology, and I'm going to tell you, we're going to have a spinoff from this podcast about astrology. Hang tight. ChatGPT is helping me
Love
put
that.
things into work. Yeah. Your 30s is a Saturn return. And that's when you look at your life and you're like, what the F am I doing? Is this what I want to be doing? Are these the people I want to be with? How do I need to set myself up for the next 30 years? And surprisingly, AmeriCorps is actually experiencing their Saturn return.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, very curious where we're going to all end up on the other side of this. I spent 6 months in constituent services within Governor Hogan's office.
Mhm.
And the amount of people that reached out to me about the issues and problems and concerns, and they couldn't work through the systems. And then I called the SNAP benefits office, and then suddenly this person had a meeting. But I didn't know that existed. And so now when people say we need systemic change in our systems, I'm like, yes. Yes, yes, and yes, because I was part of the behind the scenes where people are getting like log jammed, people are getting like stuck because they don't know how to get through the systems. So there's this combination of understanding the struggles and then from a standpoint of administration, but as a AmeriCorps person, boots on the ground, where you're like, these are human beings or these are natural environments. Things need to be different. They just need to be different. Okay, sorry.
They need no, they need to be different. And I think I totally agree about systemic change, but I think that like when a lot of times when people want systemic change, they want other people to change these systems. And I don't think that like people have enough confidence in themselves to realize that like the power to cause that systemic change can come from within them. And I think that one thing that I will always be thankful for that I decided to do AmeriCorps on a whim when someone fills out a grant and submits it to a commission, for example, you have to identify a problem. That problem may have been existing for a while, but like individuals are going to come in and they're going to attempt to provide some sort of intervention to fix that problem. So AmeriCorps really gave me the tools to say, hey, I think that I can do my part to help fix this problem in this community, and others can do that too. So I think that systemic change, yes, it's very much needed, but also we need to build a culture where people can see themselves as agents of change and not rely on other people to do that and cause that and to ride along the wave.
Love that. Thank you so much for that kind of blind, what is it called? Blind spot? That appreciate that. That's great. Okay, so we're having a moment because I'm learning more about myself. Okay. And we're back. So your experience in FEMA, you were seeing these people, you were getting this training where really you're responding to disaster, and you're also a young adult and you're coming into your own and you're learning how to deal with your own stuff while also dealing with other people's stuff. So let's loop around and close out that chapter and tell us all of the highlights of that FEMA Corps. And did you do another year in FEMA Corps? Did you do something different after that?
No, so I loved my experience so much. So like I said, I went into the first term of service. I'm going to use this time. I'm going to think about what I want to do. And by the end of my term, I'm going to know. And after a couple months in FEMA Corps, I was just like, this is awesome. I love it. It's like summer camp at the beginning because you're all together as one corps. And then like you're going off and you're doing all of this like disaster work and you're coming back and you're sharing what you've learned. And I really felt that I wasn't done with service. I wanted to work on my leadership skills. So I talked to my unit leader and I was just, hey, I really loved my experience. My unit leader was amazing. She challenged me one day when I was slacking off, and she really told me, she pulled me aside and she was like, hey, people look up to you. You have the natural skills to be a leader, but you're taking it for granted. And she told me that I needed to step the F up. And no one had ever really talked to me like that before, but I thought this person that I really respect says that she sees something in me and that I'm not realizing my full potential. So like that has stuck with me to this day. And I went to her at the end of the year and I would love to come back as a team leader, but I would really like to be in your unit because I feel like you'd have a really big impact on me. And she was like, well, if you're a team leader, you get to choose where you go. So I told her, I was just like, all right, I'm going to go fill out the application as soon as I leave your office. I came back to the Atlantic region. I was back in the Otter unit, and my team, my Corps member year, my first year was Otter 2. So I want to be the team leader of Otter 2, and I would like to provide a whole new group of young individuals who are doing this term of service for whatever reason, and I want to be able to show them the ropes and give them the experience that I had, which is incredible. So that's what I did. I re-upped. I went back home for 3 weeks, and then I refilled my green duffel bag, and I went back and I got my own team. This team was external affairs. So it was, how does FEMA tell its story in the media? So it was like doing interviews. It was writing press releases. It was going to sites and just being able to tell the story of FEMA, because as FEMA is not very well understood. I think when people think of FEMA, they immediately think of disasters gone wrong. FEMA is the Federal Emergency Management Agency, but they can't come in unless there's a disaster declaration and they're requested. When you see sluggish responses, it's because states generally don't want to ask for federal assistance until the local resources have been exhausted and state resources have been exhausted. But over the course of a couple of disasters, I think that people really cast a lot of blame on FEMA. So our external affairs team was trained FEMA's story and get some misinformation out of there. So we went to New York. We were in DC at FEMA headquarters. And that was a really great experience because that was one of the first times where I felt like I had a group of people who were depending on me to be a leader, but also help them develop the skills that they wanted to so that they could whatever they wanted to in their life after AmeriCorps. And I took that seriously because I knew how important it was for me to be able to find out what was next. So I'm still in contact with a number of people from my team. One of my team members, her dream was to become a National Park Service, a park ranger, which she did. So I've been talking to her kind of as we've seen some cuts to the federal service and things, and just checking in and see if she's okay. But yeah, I absolutely loved my experience. If I could make a grown-up salary doing that, I would probably still be doing it because I that's just a period of time in my life where it was just amazing. I look back on it fondly all the time. So that was my second year.
So that was your second year. So now you were a leader. And one of the things I wanted to double down on as an opportunity and why AmeriCorps and National Service is so important is that you find those mentors during your service year. And you were able to talk to, who was the person you talked to? It was a woman, right?
Yeah, my unit leader. Yeah.
Your unit leader. And you were like, I want to work for you. Basically, I want you to stay in my life as long as, please help me. During a service year, you're able to identify these people that can help you get the skills. What I hear through your experiences, I wanted to build out my leadership. And one of the things I love, because we are soul people, because the doors were open for us during our service year. We're the people that hold the door open and say, come on. And people are like, I don't know if I should go. And it's like, come on. If you're unsure, then you belong. And that is one of my favorite places in the world to be, is to have that door open for people and to say, you know what? This is going to feel really uncomfortable and you're going to be so disoriented, but it's going to be amazing on the other side. National Service is a wormhole. And when you were talking about those experiences, I feel like you identifying that this was a person that you knew that you wanted to serve and work under. Mm-hmm. And that it was so important for you to make sure that the people that were coming up behind you had this similar experience that you have. And that is the impact of national service. And that is why this is so important. It's so important to keep this going. And who knew that FEMA had a whole division of service members that were like, let's tell our story really well. Amazing. Amazing.
No, I think about it all the time. I think about the people that I served with. I remember our team went and there was this church that had floodwaters come all the way up to their second story. And we were mucking and getting their houses, the church, and we would come across damaged pictures and things. And they would tell us the story of the people who were in the pictures and how they couldn't come to service because there was mold in the sheetrock and stuff. And after we had fixed all the sheetrock and it was good to hold service in there again, they held a picnic for us. They told us how much it meant to us. It's just these sorts of experiences, I think, are things that people need to experience. This doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be what you do for the rest of your life, but I think putting yourself in a position where you are putting your needs aside for someone else's, especially during their formative years, I think is just, it's something that everyone needs to experience at least once. And I'm glad that I was a glutton for punishment and did it over and over again, because I don't know where I'd be without those experiences, but it really changed my life for the better.
So you did 2 service terms in FEMA Corps, but you said you did 3 years. So what was your 3rd year?
So my 3rd year, I was trying to be strategic. So I was like, I want to go back home, which for me is Indianapolis, Indiana. And I decided to go the AmeriCorps Vista route, Volunteers in Service to America. I wanted to go somewhere that I would never think of myself going. So I decided to go to a school. I'll preface that by saying that my mom she is by training, she is a librarian and always worked in school libraries and stuff. And I feel like whenever my school was out, I was always with her in the school. And I was just like, man, I do not want to be a teacher or anything, because I feel like I've had double the amount of school that most people had like growing up. So I went to a small school in Indianapolis called the Oaks Academy. I was their community relations coordinator. They had just opened a new campus on the Near East Side, which is actually where I live now. And they were trying to get the word out, and they were also trying to stay in touch with alums from the school that were moving on to college and just starting jobs and things like that, and keep them connected to the school. I did that for a year. I absolutely loved it. Everyone that was there was so nice. And it was just a completely different experience than FEMA Corps, just because it's still a professional setting, but there's no disasters. There's kids singing and learning, and
your feet aren't soaking wet.
So it was completely different, but it was great because the Oaks Academy, their CEO, for example, his name is Andrew Hart. He knows the name of every single student that has ever been at the school, and he'll pass them in the hallway. He'll ask how they're doing. All the parents know all the teachers. So it was this really you should come to the Oaks Academy where your children will be known and loved. And that was something that I thought was super cool. There were 4 of us there as members, and I remember they have these staff versus the students games and things. That I was in the volleyball game. I was the goalie in the soccer game, and up until that point, the staff had never lost. And of course, they lost when I was the goalie. They gave me a little bit of a hard time about it, but it's fine. So I made history there. I wanted to be intentional about doing something that was like a fish out of water experience, just to have that. And that was a great experience for me too. I was able to come home. I was able to live back at home with my mom, so I didn't have to struggle with the housing situation that an issue with because of the living allowance. That made my term of service a lot more comfortable than I feel like a lot of other people have. But yeah, that was my third term of service, and I loved all three. If I could do any of those three at my current salary, I'd probably be doing it.
Yeah. And going from FEMA Corps to Vista, that is a huge transition. As we said, no longer feet cold and wet. Vista's administrative, it's capacity building, it's behind the
Yeah.
scenes. I want to just take a pause. You've mentioned your mom many times, and you've mentioned her influence on you. Would you just take a moment to think about she was the first person that sent you the very first AmeriCorps opportunity.
Yep.
So what does she mean to you in your life?
A lot. I grew up in a single parent household. My mom, she always used to say, you need to be in the middle of a good book. She's a librarian. So I feel like part of that is like, okay, you want me to love reading, which I do. And I was a voracious reader growing up. But I think, especially now that I have children, I can't imagine doing it by myself. So the fact that she was able to raise two children as a working mom and be very involved in our lives and help us both go to college, help us with everything that we needed. She was my first role model. I feel like all of my major role models in my entire life have always been women. Find AmeriCorps. She sent it to me. I never heard of it before then. Shout out to you, Mom.
I love that. And I totally put you on the spot with that. So I love how she said you should always be in the middle of a good book. If I don't have something good to read, I feel like I'm lost. Shout out to Mom, whatever Mom is, wherever Mom is. We love Mom. So you did those 3 terms of service, mucking and gutting, cold feet, all the things, and then behind the scenes, you did a lot of community relations. It sounded like with FEMA Corps, you were doing a lot of external storytelling. One of the things that I've seen with AmeriCorps members and AmeriCorps alumni, it's difficult to explain what you've done. You always were able to tell the story of national service well, from a perspective of it's not just getting people into national service and serving. There's so many more aspects of this. So how did these experiences, you have 2 young kids, how did
They're
those
in bed, so I'm good.
Oh, yay, yay. How did those experiences, how does it impact your work now? And you can decide where to go with that.
Yeah, I think so. One, I feel like I've always loved working with people. I love meeting people and hearing how they became who they are. Maybe that's just because I'm a little nosy as a person, but I think everyone has an interesting story. Everyone has a story worth telling. In FEMA Corps, one of the first trainings that we had was you have to be able to tell your story. And you have to be able to tell your story in an interesting but concise way. You need to be able to have an elevator speech. If you can get in an elevator and you can tell someone why you decided to serve, who you served, and why it was important, you should be able to do that in a ride on the elevator. So they would say that to us all the time. And I feel when I had downtime, I was always thinking about what if I ran into the administrator of FEMA, which I actually did one time. His name is Craig Fugate. I ran into him one time, and because I was always thinking about my story, I was just like, hey, I'm Willie Brooks. I'm on the public assistance team. I'm from the Atlantic region, and this is why it's important to me. I don't know if he remembers that, but I do, because I feel like he was like a famous person to me. I'm the director of programs for the Serve Indiana Commission now, and I feel like I would like to do it a lot more often, but one of my favorite things to do, my absolute favorite part of my job is monitoring, and specifically it is the member interviews, because I was a member. I remember how much I liked my term of service, and I know how my term of service led to where I am today. Monitoring gets like this really bad rap because it's an audit, but I want to know if the member can tell me what it is they're doing. I want to know if they can tell me why it's important. And based on those two things, I want to see have a pride for what they're doing. So we have this list of questions. They tell me what they're doing, and then it becomes conversational. And I talk about, I was a member, I was in your shoes, and this is where I am today. And I tell them how cool what they're doing is, not in a false way, because I think that all of the programs that we have are really awesome. They're trying to solve problems that have been issues in their communities for a long time with these young people who may or may not have had a professional experience before. I always tell them why what they're doing is important and that they should be able to tell someone else that in a short amount of time and leave them thinking like, wow, that person is doing something amazing. How can I share that story with someone else? Because I think these stories of service and helping others are contagious as long as you can tell the story. That's something that was drilled into us at FEMA Corps, and I try and tell them all the time, you got to tell your story.
We have to do a course or something, or a mastermind or something. What are you doing and why is it important? Because you're exactly right. The elevator pitch. When I was with Volunteer Maryland, which is a statewide AmeriCorps program in Maryland, but I started them off with, my name is Nikki Fiacco. I'm an AmeriCorps member serving with Volunteer Maryland at X site. And this is my job, and this is the impact I'm going to do. And it was like that, right? And I think we're like, well, we're like encouraging communities to work together in diverse and inclusive ways to be like making everything great and making everything green and beautiful and making everybody feel good about themselves. And it's like, what?
But did you actually say anything? I don't think you did.
Oh, you used so many great words. Those are all great words. They're all great ideas. They're all good stuff. But what's the call to action, right? I'm doing these things. And so I love that your monitoring goes into what are you doing and what's the impact? Just tell me that.
Tell me that. Yeah. No, I love it.
Go on.
That skill has been very important in Indiana. Serve Indiana sits within the Department of Workforce Development. My coworkers, they get so tired of hearing. I like to say all the time, national service isn't just rainbows and unicorns. Like we actually things. We are doing amazing things in the community, but if you're not able to tell someone in a short amount of time why what you're doing is important and why they should care, they're not going to. Being able to concisely get to the point of why your term of service matters is a super important skill, because if you can do it for your term of service, you can do it for any occupation, any job. You can go into an interview and you can very quickly say, these are the things that I accomplished. This is why I would be a great addition to your team. These are the skill sets that I am bringing to this organization. It's just like a really foundational skill that I think that if AmeriCorps members, if alumni, or just our field in general was better at overall, I think that more people would know about AmeriCorps, more people would be open about outwardly supporting AmeriCorps, because more people would know what is happening in their community that wouldn't be happening if we weren't there. So,
it's that life after AmeriCorps piece. It's that bridge between life after AmeriCorps, but also nurturing the next generation of folks who want to serve.
52 commissions, roughly, not counting one of the Dakotas. Each of us gets an allotment of dollars to fund state and national, which is a different branch of AmeriCorps. So there's NCCC, state and national, Vista. There's AmeriCorps seniors. So state commissions run the state and national program, and we get an allotment of dollars based on, I want to say it's like population or something like that. So each year you hold like a grant process. Organizations apply to those that get accepted by their commission, receive dollars to have a program that attempts to solve a problem in a local community. That's the commission in a nutshell. Generally, so Serve Indiana, like our The bulk of our work is AmeriCorps related. We do have a line item in our state budget, and we sit within the Department of Workforce Development. So we do also, we're concerned about like just the general state of service and volunteerism in the state. We want Hoosiers helping Hoosiers. What we've tried to do here in Indiana is build a pathway and show that there is a service to career pathway, and get folks attuned to the idea that you don't just have to go to college. You don't just have to go straight into the workforce. There is another option that not a lot of people know about. By successfully completing, you can get an education award that can help you do some of the other things that you're looking at. You can do your term of service, and maybe that organization likes you so much, maybe they'll hire you. There are a lot of options as it pertains to service and things like that, but we're trying to show that there is a connection between service and that it is a pathway to a career.
If somebody was serving and they're like, wait, I could work in a commission, your role is to do the monitoring and everything. So talk a little bit about how you got into that role.
Yeah, I'm the director of programs. So once a program apply to get this funding to have a program and they actually become a fully fledged program, then they sit with me. So this year we have 12 programs all across the state. I help them with making sure all their members are enrolled. I help them with any potential disciplinary issues. I take all of their metrics. I report them to the federal government. And a big part of my role is trying to amplify what these programs are accomplishing, what the members are accomplishing, and making sure that people know about what's going on in terms of volunteerism and service with our AmeriCorps program. So if you wanted to be a part of Serve Indiana, I'm a state employee. If there are openings, you could go to in.gov and you could look to see if there was an opening. You can apply and you could potentially join the Indiana staff that way. We don't currently have openings, but be on the lookout. Pretty cool. I don't know if you've heard of the Indy 500, but that's here. We got the Colts, we got the Pacers, who I was working dance that whole.
So the Colts left Baltimore in the dark of the night.
They did.
No idea about that story. So this is the whole thing, folks. Yeah. Well, enough with it about AmeriCorps. We're going to talk about football. No, I'm just kidding. For those folks that don't know, the Colts used to be in Baltimore, and then they left in the middle of the night, and they went to Indianapolis, right? Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And now but now we have the Ravens. So just saying.
Hey, it looks like it worked out well for everybody.
It is. It's working out well. Willie, this has been such a great interview, and I know I could talk to you for another 35, 40 minutes. What didn't I ask you that you might want to say? And then what should people walk away with?
A couple things. I would say that national service is for everybody. It's for young people. It's for people who know exactly what they want to do and see this as a pathway to do it. It's for people who, like me, had no idea what they wanted to do and are looking to build skills that they don't currently have. It's a way to upskill. It's a way to reskill. It's a way to build connection. It's a way to build empathy. It's a way to build compassion, but it's for everybody. There are a lot of people who don't see themselves as being a volunteer. Everyone can be a volunteer. Everyone can give back. If you ever find yourself stuck in a rut or you just want to discover something new, national service, not just AmeriCorps, national service is a great opportunity to do that. And then I will also say that the only thing special about my story is that I chose to do AmeriCorps. I chose it pretty much blindly. There's nothing particularly unique about what I decided to do other than choosing to make that plunge. If that sounds appealing to you, I would do it. And then also to all of the alums out there, you should be sharing your story. You should be talking with other people about how impactful your service was, because not enough people have heard it. If you think you've told a lot of people, you can tell more people. I bring up AmeriCorps all the time, not just because I work at a state service commission, but because without my AmeriCorps experience, I don't know what I would be doing. It would probably be something that I didn't really care that much about. But I know for me and for a lot of other people who have decided to take the national service plunge, it's worth it. And you should be talking about it because not enough people make that decision, and you did, and you changed someone's life, you made a community better, and people should know about it.
I love everything you said. So if you've made it this far, you obviously love this content. So just subscribe. Just subscribe
Do
and
it.
like it. Do it. Listen to Billy. He's smart. Subscribe, comment. We want to know what you're up to and appreciate everything. We'll be back with another AmeriCorps Connections podcast and share it and do all the things. So thanks again, Willie. And we'll see y'all next time with an AmeriCorps Connections podcast. And the last thing I'm going to say is continue to get things done because that's what we do.